that's sort of leads on to the next one as well, is actually the guarantees and the bonds. So we touched on the bonds before, but most people don't even know how to check a guarantee. So like there's two types of guarantees.
Yeah. What is the guarantee?
Yeah.
Just so people know.
So the guarantee is the tenant kind of promising that they're going to uphold the contract of the lease. So there's two types. There's a personal guarantee. So that's them putting themselves up personally, versus like a bank guarantee. They've each got a pro and a con. So like the personal one, it's a little bit harder because like theoretically, if business does really bad, they could sort of declare bankruptcy. So you're not going to get it out of it. So part of that is checking their collateral, like making sure they've got a house and doing all that. The bank guarantees are a bit tighter that way because the bank holds it. And then actually I should say there's a third. There's obviously a company guarantee as well. That's probably the highest risk because guess what? If they're not paying the rent and business is suffering, the company's not worth anything. Yeah. So you want to get like a personal or a bank guarantee if you can. But again, it's just like who within residential actually checks the tenants, like personal circumstances. Like the property manager will be like, oh, they're great. That's a nurse and a chippy and they always paid their rents on time. That's all you do. They don't put up a house or something as collateral, but they're also not typically signing like a 5-year lease. So that confuses some people, but the type of property is kind of what I worry about. Again, it's one of those ones clients will really get caught up on, like, oh, there's no personal guarantee. There's only a bond. If I'm buying like a warehouse and the vacancy rate's 1 to 2 months anyway, it's not that critical to the deal.
It's a real backup, isn't it?
It's a backup. But if I'm buying, say, a medical center where I'm paying an absolute premium because it's a medical center and it's got to fit out and I like that business, I definitely want to see a personal guarantee because if they sign that and do it at a premium, especially if it was like a lease back or something like that, and they decide to leave, I've just paid 20% too much for that property. So I want to make sure that I can at least get the lease out as a layer of protection. It gives me time. So just checking those things are probably the big ones as well.
And with the guarantee, so the business having a guarantee or the business having like a personal guarantee, would they also combine maybe some of the plants and the equipment in the property as part of guarantee? Like, or is that?
This is where it gets complicated. Generally not. You'll kind of have an inventory list, which sort of alludes onto like another one. So like part of the lease, they'll sometimes have special conditions. So the special conditions can be like I mentioned, like the undocumented like incentives, the rental concessions. If there's cancellation or termination clauses, sometimes they'll have like a clause where they can actually get out and only give you 3 months notice, even if they've signed a long lease. So that this is where probably more so where you need the lawyer to have a look at it. Special building allowances. If there's any additional expenses. So we obviously touched on other ones where they pay 100% of the outgoings, but sometimes there'll be stuff that they don't have to nominate, like they're not responsible for the air conditioning or the refrigeration or whatever it may be like that. Once one I've seen recently, demolition clauses. So there's ones where the owner potentially might be in your advantage is you can kick them out if you need to demolish the site. So i.e. you want to do a development or something like that. So the special conditions is probably like the last one where it gets really tricky and really gray, but that's also the beauty of commercial is you can negotiate absolute anything and then kind of go from there.
Yeah. Got ya.
Yeah.
So as a brand new buyer, the buyer's agent's going to typically go through all these things. What's the one that really catches people off guard mostly out of those sort of 4 that you've mentioned?
Probably the rent not matching the rental statements. Like that's the easiest one, and it's the most common. People just take it for face value, and it gets quite complicated sometimes because like you'll ask for a rental statement and they'll say no, and then they give you an Excel spreadsheet saying this is when they paid, and you're kind of like, should I trust this? Should I not trust this? Yeah. So I'll change my answer a little bit. The lack of information is probably gets what people are most caught off guard and what means they can't pull the trigger because they don't like my due diligence checklist has like 100 things you request.
So many documents that you have to get.
You don't always get